Okay, so welcome back to the channel. Today we have a bit of a slim show today because I was rushing home to get back in time. But we're going to be talking about, shout out to Tosin, we're going to be talking about Torishéju and then also kind of what's been going on TikTok regarding the exposure of a lot of luxury brands. How is everyone doing? I hope everyone is doing really well. You've got the regulars in the chat very early. I like to see that. I like to see that. That's always good to see. Hello, hello, hello. But anyway, I think just so we don't drag it today, let's just hop straight into it. We can just hop into this from the start, essentially. So for people that haven't seen, essentially on TikTok, in response to the Trump tariffs, it seems like a lot of Chinese influencers and Chinese producers have taken time out to expose as many luxury brands as they can and talk about why these brands are all produced in China and why China has the capability to produce all these things and many other countries don't have the expertise, and exposing a lot of brands that claim that, you know, stuff is made in Italy or made in France or whatever, but actually it's made in China, and they're actually specifically naming the factories that it comes from and all those kind of things. I think that what this whole frenzy on TikTok has taught me is that I am in a bubble. I think us in fashion, we are very much in a bubble where we've known these things for years. You know, I cover it all the time. There's a whole book written about this sort of stuff, how luxury lost its luster, that I have a 14-part series on. So you kind of assume that this is common knowledge, but it really isn't. And through the frenzy, the media frenzy that this has created, I've seen a lot of people, especially stateside, not be happy and be really pissed off with what's gone on. I've seen people burning their designer goods after learning that some of it is produced in China, which is absolutely insane. um, so I've seen all of that going on, and I find the whole thing fascinating. Now, there were, you know, a lot of rebuttals around this thing, and I think they were valid rebuttals. The first one is, you know, why have they exposed so many European brands when their issue is with the USA? And I think the more brands that they can expose, the better their message is told, and the better, you know, they can push a narrative of we produce everything, so you need us. Essentially, they're trying to push, you know, the hands of a lot of these brands to kind of fight for against the tariffs on their behalf, because manufacturers obviously will have issues if they can't produce in low labor markets like China, which is something that they've been exploiting for a very, very long time. I saw another rebuttal online where people are asking, isn't this really bad because they'll lose their customers in terms of the companies that they work with if they're exposing that it's made in China? And my rebuttal to that would be, if these tariffs continue and if they stay this way, these companies were going to leave anyway and find any alternative, because at that point, China will be way too expensive to produce in for a lot of these brands, and they'll seek all the low labor cost markets that aren't highly tariffed by the US, right? So yes, they would have lost their business regardless, which is why they're doing everything in their power to fight against the tariffs. Because if they can get the tariffs reduced, then it's a win for them. So in this case, you can kind of see the European brands as like collateral damage, but really it's kind of just a retail, an exposure of American luxury retail. That's really the point of everything that has been going on. But what I want to do is react to some of the videos trending on TikTok and give my thoughts on exactly, you know, what I think about certain videos. Some of the videos that I actually wanted to react to, funny enough, they've been banned from TikTok. So it seems like, you know, a lot of brands have been on top of it and are trying to get a lot of these videos taken down. I also saw someone say that maybe Donald Trump is going to shut down TikTok for real because, you know, they're using it as as kind of like ammo against, you know, the US establishment and trying to expose businesses. So we'll see if that happens, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. But yeah, let's react to some of the videos. Let's see some of the videos.
It ain't no way we been getting finesse like this, y'all. And China just exposed it all. So boom, Americans out here dropping 800, 1200, and even 4,000 and more on designer clothes, thinking it's all luxury, all high quality clothes, the high end stuff. But China just pulled the curtain back and showed the world that most of the stuff is made in the same factories with material that costs a fraction of the price. So we're talking shoes that cost $30 to make, but it's
Now, to pause there, so a lot of luxury brands are still overpriced regardless, but I do think it's important to note, and I talk about this all the time for people that are on the channel, you know I talk about this all the time, which is funny why there was someone who reacted to my video that I posted on TikTok, like, doesn't he understand, blah, 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 and it's like, I talk about it all the time. But essentially, there's more that goes into the cost of a bag that ends up in a store at your doorstep than just the cost of material. There's the cost of labor, of course. There's the marketing cost that goes within it. Depending on where it's made, they might have to pay money to get certain certification. They have to pay money to do so many different things. So there is a lot factoring in. Just because maybe something costs $1,500 to make does not mean that they should sell it to you for $1,600 and they're making $100 profit. It's not that simplistic. However, it does give you a good understanding, or it can give you a good ability to guess kind of what their profit margins are when you add all those other costs in. But people are making it out like, you know, it costs them only 400 to make, so why don't they sell it for 600? It's not really that simple.
But it's being sold in US for 700. And we're talking hoodies that cost $10 to make that's being sold for over 300. And jeans that cost 50 to make that's being sold for 5 to 1,000. That's not high end. That's robbery. Y'all, and this is the crazy thing. This is not even new. A lot of people just been blind to it. They think it just because they got a fancy label, that means it costs more. In reality, that just means the markups is better. China basically said, here y'all go. Now y'all better act like you know. And now everybody mad. They not mad at China. They mad at the brands that been overpricing this stuff they've been buying. They mad at the brands that they've been worshiping. See a sucker, lick a sucker, no diddy. They seeing now, they were never buying quality. They were buying status. And they finally waking up. All of this happened because of this tariffs. People would have never knew. Or some people was really too blind to even notice the fact. But now everything is front and center for everybody to see. So if you one of them people that dropped the check on this designer shit and now you feel played, let me know down below in the comments. Let's talk about it.
Let's see some of the comments. Let's see what people are saying in the comments. Everything in almost all over the world is made in China. Not everything. Now they're going from one extreme to the other. I mean, there are many manufacturing hubs across the world, whether we're talking about the automotive industry in like Germany, for example, or, you know, tweed and certain, you know, wools and stuff that are made in Scotland, or mohair that's milled in South Africa. I mean, there's most countries specialize in a thing. You can't say everything is manufactured in China, but supposedly a lot of things that people think are manufactured in, you know, the West probably are manufactured in China. I also think there's this misconception, like people try to, or maybe they just do, they underestimate the, you know, production power of China. People are always like, nothing good quality is made in China, which is not true. It's just that brands go to China with the intention of cutting costs and cutting corners, which is why they get bad quality products. China has, you know, the capability to make really high quality products, but also really low quality products, depending on what you're going for, how much you're willing to spend, and all that sort of stuff. And there are obviously brands that exploit labor laws in low cost income markets like China, but even other markets like Cambodia, like Vietnam, which are also affected by the tariffs, not as bad as China, but still affected. And there are sweatshops and there's so many human rights violations, and that's so problematic. But aside from that, you also need to consider that even within China, there are certain luxury brands that have created their own factories in China and trained the staff the way that they would train their staff in the West, and the working conditions are better. So it's also not a monolith. Like, there are different types of Chinese factories with different working conditions. Everything in China does not look like a sweatshop, which is kind of what people think or people assume. There's like so many different grades and levels to factories in China. But let's react to another video that I saw and thought was interesting.
The Chinese manufacturers woke up and chose total violence today, and I've never supported anything more in my life. So in case you haven't believed it, hearing it come out of my mouth for the last 7 months, maybe you'll hear it and believe it coming straight from them. And I was already just about to make a whole series talking about designer clothes and what they actually cost. So this will be great to amplify that. And the algorithm will already be good and boosted.
This was a funny video I saw talking about people that really weren't aware with this whole shebang. So let's see. This person says, "Thank you, China, for exposing the truth." So let's see what they're about to do to those Gucci slides. Gucci slides are not complicated to make, so I don't know why they thought that, crafted artisans hand create the slides.
First of all, after finding out what I just found out about the US and China, I want to say I'm highly ticked off. I'm highly upset. 3 years ago, I paid $450 for these Gucci slides at the Gucci store.
$450 is a complete ripoff for slides. Complete and utter ripoff.
Right here in Houston, Texas. And now China done exposed the fact that these shoes right here only cost 75 cents to produce. You know what? Real Gucci slides. I'm done. The hell with these Gucci slides. You know what? China, listen. If y'all watching this, China, I have nothing against y'all. I want to personally say thank you. What they did was wrong. 75 cents for Gucci slides. I got about 15 pair of these.
But realistically, how much do people think that it would cost to make slides that simple? It's not even like leather or anything fancy. It's literally just plastic. What do people expect?
What's going on, man? 75 cents. How much were these to produce? How much were these, huh? Were these another one of those?
Okay, oh no, he bought the Valentino slides. Okay, so this is someone who clearly is buying these things thinking that it's quality and has finally been awakened to the fact that these things are actually extremely cheap to make, more so than any of the ready-to-wear pieces or the leather bags. The slides are actually the cheapest things. The profit margins on the slides are probably as good as, if not better. They're better. I was going to say better than fragrances, but they're way better than fragrances, because fragrances are cheap but not that cheap to produce. But yeah, these max $3 to $5 max to make. So yeah, $400, that is a healthy profit margin, to be honest.
Famous slides that Valentino that only cost 10 or 12 cents. Listen, I'm buying direct now from the manufacturer. I'm finna start buying manufacturer straight directly. So basically, these are fake. These are basically.
So I've seen a lot of people. This is something I actually really want to talk about. So I've seen a lot of people as an alternative to a lot of luxury brands, or against these luxury brands, because this has been trending across TikTok. And my my guess is that the Chinese government has a lot to do with it, because when you think of the past, the Chinese government is really good at controlling narratives, and that's why they wanted, like, the US government wanted to shut down TikTok in the first place because apparently the Chinese government is like stealing people's information and doing all this stuff and creating their own campaigns and controlling certain narratives on TikTok, which is why they wanted to shut it down. And I think what they've done here, because there's been an overload over the past like 48 hours of these videos exposing the luxury market within the past 48 hours. And I'm like, the timing of it seems very interesting. Why are we getting an overload of all these videos all of a sudden over the past 48 hours when Trump put the tariffs up? Interesting.
Basically fake. That's what y'all talking. I'm upset, man. So I've been walking around.
This is true too. Factory owners themselves started posting these TikToks explaining the pricing because they are mad at the tariffs. Yeah, and just like I said earlier, because I'm not sure when you joined, essentially you need to remember that they need to fight this because if the tariffs stay the way they are, they will lose their customers who will just go to still, cheap labor markets, but not China. They'll just go elsewhere that isn't tariffed as high for now, at least. So they will lose their customers, which is why they have to fight it. I do also think that it isn't the alternative that people think it is. I think people should stop having obsessions over brands where people are like, okay, instead of, buying it straight from the brand, I'm just going to buy it directly from the supplier. Instead of just buying all this branded stuff and all this stuff, why not just buy something else? Find a local leather maker in the US. There are quite a few of them that make leather boots or leather jackets and stuff, because by the time you're spending $400 for slides, and he doesn't have one pair, he has multiple, so he is definitely someone that could afford some like expertly crafted stuff. So why not support local American businesses? Put some money into the pocket of your local businesses and buy from them, rather than your alternative being, instead of buying it from the brand, let me just buy it direct from the supplier in China. I find it weird that, that's the next thing that people have gone to. And of course, there's another conversation and element we need to add when it comes to the human rights violations and all that sort of stuff that isn't really a part of the conversation also. So when you're like, yeah, I'm just going to buy it from China instead, there's also a lot of other issues to what you're supporting when you do that. So yeah, I don't understand this obsession with, I have to get this design of Gucci sliders one way or another wherever I buy it. Why not just buy different sliders and a different design entirely?
With fake Gucci slides on the whole time. You mean to tell me I could have just walked into a knockoff store and bought these same Gucci slides for $10 or $12? Nobody would have knew that they was fake. Like, people say it's the quality, but nobody's going to walk up and say, hey, let me feel the quality of your Gucci slides. Hey, let me feel the quality of your Amiri to see if it's real. I'm upset, man.
Yeah, but no one's going to come up to you to ask you to feel the quality of your Gucci slides because they're Gucci slides. They're plastic. So there's no quality to feel. Like, everyone knows what it is.
China. Thank you for exposing me. This is how I feel about these Gucci slides. Thank you again, China. We as Americans appreciate you guys.
He's doing way too much. Obviously, probably part of it is for content, because hammering your slides, they didn't really do any damage. I'm looking, the damage isn't done. Why doesn't he burn them instead? If he really wants to do damage, he should have burnt them instead. Something I'm going to show you is one of the videos that was actually removed from TikTok. So I wonder if Hermes got involved and actually was able to remove that video from TikTok themselves, or what exactly happened with that. But there was a video, exposing, I guess, the cost of an Hermes bag. There is some extra content that you need to add to that, but we'll get into that when we, specifically talk about that video. But this is the video.
That at Hermes boutique will cost you 38,000 USD. But what is the real cost out of the factory? Today, I'm going to break it down in front of you, step by step. First thing first, Hermes only use the leathers from the 3 top-level suppliers. One is called Muti from Italy. The second is Weinheim from Germany. And the third is Haas from France. One piece of Togo leather, the same leather as this one, will cost 450 USD. And one piece of the leather is only enough to make one Birkin, okay? The thread. And of course, for Hermes Birkin, the thread is also the best top level. It's called Fil al Chinois from France.
The really interesting thing about this also is the guy that's saying this looks AI generated. And I was wondering if the person that made this did it with this sort of AI thing so they can like protect themselves from like a lawsuit or something, because like I said, this has been taken down from TikTok, so they were, you know, doing it to defend themselves. But anyway, let's get back to the video. Also, this video went extremely viral, by the way. It had millions of views on TikTok when it was up. And something that I want to tell you guys is that a lot of people have this misconception that he was essentially saying that you know, they use factories in China. Hermes does not use factories in China, and he never said that. He was just telling people the exact thread, lining, leather that they use, and, you know, kind of using that as an example to say this is how much it actually costs to produce. But they don't actually produce in China. Hermes does not produce in China. So yeah, but most of the luxury brands do produce in China, but Hermes is not one of them.
This is actually the Rolls Royce in thread. For each bag, the cost is 25 USD. And then the hardware. See, this hardware is called 316 hardware. It's also known as the ocean stainless steel because it can withstand the erosion of seawater. It's the best stainless steel. For one piece of bag, the hardware will cost 150 USD. The edge oil. This edge oil is imported from Italy. It's called heat seal edge oil. For each bag, it will cost 50 USD. The interior lining, it used lambskin imported from France. For each bag, the cost will be 100 USD. And also inside, there is a zipper from...
So if you pay attention, you can see that everything that Hermes is sourcing is either from like Italy, Germany, or France. And then obviously it's actually made and assembled in France. So there seems to be this misconception because this Chinese manufacturer is showing people what the raw materials are and what they cost. People then misconstrued it to mean that people make Hermes bags in China, but the official Hermes bags aren't made in China.
Brand, and the vapor for one bag is 10 USD. And then the cost of human resource. The French artisans is much more expensive than Chinese artisans to finish one bag.
So as you can see, even he's mentioned the French artisan. So he's literally saying that it's produced in France. He's not even saying that's produced in China, because he's talking about the cost of the human resource cost to make a bag in China versus France.
The human resource cost will be 600 USD. The package, now this is not that expensive, it's 10 USD. So now to sum those up, the total cost will be 1,400 USD for one Birkin out of factory. But why Hermes will charge you 38,000 USD for one bag? That's because more than 90% of the price is paid for its logo. But if you do not care about the logo, you just want the same quality, same material, you can just buy from us. Because for our bags, we use exactly the same material, same leather, same hardware, same edge oil. The only difference is one, we don't have the logo, so we don't have to pay so much amount of money just for that logo. And second, our human resource is much cheaper. This is why this bag from our factory only costs you 1,000 USD.
So interesting what was said. Obviously, a lot of this information needs to be verified. Hermes won't verify it themselves, obviously. But this was on TikTok. I wonder how many bags he sold because this video went so viral. And obviously part of it is part of this sort of media campaign of exposing the luxury industry. But this manufacturer, whoever, you know, made the video, could earn a lot from people just clicking the link and buying directly from them. So that's absolutely insane. But considering that, okay, if you're going to believe what this person has said, it costs 1,395 to make. You have to add so many other things like because France actually has like very, very strict labor laws. You can't just get away with stuff that you'd get away with in China. So they have to make sure everything is above board. There's a lot of money that makes sure that the manufacturing plant is all safe and above board. They probably have to, spend a lot of money making sure that they get rid of the waste in a very sustainable way, which wouldn't necessarily be the case in most of the manufacturing plants in China. Also, Hermes has initiatives where they have schools where they teach people how to, keep the craft going when it comes to the creation of these bags. So there's many aspects that you're paying for. Hermes also has a very strong legal team that is always working hard to protect the IP of their bags. So actually, when you buy an Hermes bag, you're paying for all those things mixed in, of course, with the brand name and the prestige. So yes, it's extremely overpriced, but not as overpriced as it's made to seem in this video, for sure. Won't Hermes strike back at a guy for providing proof that he deliberately copies Birkins? Yeah, which is probably why they took the video down, because I can't really find it, to be honest. I'm having issues finding it. So yeah, I think that's probably the case. But then also there's this Chinese supply of Lululemon. This video is another video that went viral, so I'll just play this quickly.
Does Lululemon have OEM factories in China? Of course, yes. Xianglong Apparel, Hongqi Shen Clothing. Both of them are in Yiwu City. They supply a lot of yoga suits with good materials and high quality for Lululemon. But the cost is only $5 to $10. They also make products for other famous brands like Fila and UA. If you want to source clothes with good quality and low prices, contact me. I will help you. Baozhuan, make business strong.
So yeah, it's these videos are all over TikTok essentially, like so many of them. And like I said, it's a double whammy because they're exposing the luxury industry, but they're also making money from this, because a lot of people I've seen in the comments are like, where can I buy it? Send me a link, all this sort of stuff. Like, let's look at let's look at some of the comments. This is the level of snitching I appreciate. Lululemon is an anti-Chinese brand manufactured in China. What's an irony? They even tried to make the name hard for Chinese people to pronounce. Makes sense why my Lululemon BBL jacket knockoff from Shein is the same as the real thing. I'm quite surprised though that people didn't know that Lululemon was manufactured in China, because it's Lululemon. It's just like activewear. It's not even anything, complicated or anything like that. It's just activewear, and not even like that good at activewear. So I'm quite surprised with the media frenzy about this and how, shocked people have been over this. I just find it, really, really surprising. Let me see. Let me go to the comments and see what you guys are saying in the comments. Maybe the laws that let this escalate should be tightened up and achieve that. For example, at least 75% of a given product has to be made in the country it is labeled as being from. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Obviously, a massive issue we've had in fashion for years is this ability for brands to source fabrics and, make most of a bag or a garment or footwear in a certain country and then just finish it in France or finish it in Italy. And then based on a certain percentage that is finished in one of those countries, they can call it made in America or made in Italy or made in France. That has always been a really, really big problem in fashion that needs to be fixed, because it doesn't really say much to the origin of where the clothing is actually made. I remember years ago, but it hasn't been implemented, we were having this conversation around blockchain being implemented into fashion, and why that would be a good idea is because if you add blockchain, you would be able to actually follow the source of where your garments are made, from the farm to every factory it's been to the end consumer. But of course, that wasn't implemented because brands cannot afford to have blockchain as part of their garments, because that would expose their whole system and would probably destroy their business model. So it makes sense why it wasn't implemented. But I remember 5 years ago, you had all these tech people that were collaborating with fashion brands and like trying to create this technology, but it seems like it wasn't really implemented in mass. So yeah, it's a shame, because I think if that was implemented, that would have been a net positive for fashion as a whole, for consumers, for workers, everything as a whole. The cost of living is important all over the world. Of course it is. It definitely is. Definitely is. People don't take into account the quantity that's being ordered. Yep, that's true. These activewear brands and their prices are highway robbery, cheap fabrics, and high retail prices. Yeah, because most activewear is extremely cheap polyester, like super cheap polyester. And some obviously activewear, it needs to be that fabric because it's sweat wicking, and it's so there are qualities that you need the polyester for. I just don't think that most activewear should be expensive. I find like the idea of luxury activewear quite ironic because no activewear is really expensive to make. So it's kind of strange that people are willing to spend loads and loads of money for really cheap polyester. I don't know. Consumers these days, eh? Being cost effective is ideal. So hiring people that you don't have to pay a lot is usually the strategy. Yeah, and I think this is one of the biggest issues with the tariffs because if you're a luxury brand, your whole business model, the reason why every quarter you're able to increase your revenue and the reason why shareholders invest a lot in your brand is because your business model is predicated on being able to exploit workers in low cost labor markets. That's how your profit margins can be higher. If you're forced into having to produce, in the US or in any other market that's really expensive to produce in, like in the West, then that cuts too deeply into your profits, and your profits are going to go down, your overall revenues are going to go down because someone has to eat the cost one way or another. It's either the brands do or they put that cost onto the consumers. And you have to think, because I've seen a big conversation around the tariffs and all these kind of things, these conversations that, well, what happens if isn't it a good thing for fashion if we just start only using the higher quality markets like Korea or Japan? But the problem with Korea and Japan is that their quality is impeccable, especially Japan, but the cost is also super high. So how many people can afford, clothing that's manufactured in Japan and imported to the US? Most people are not willing to spend $300, $400, $500 on one piece of denim because our culture around clothing is messed up. I think that when it comes to clothes, we shouldn't own as many clothes as we do. I think it's really abnormal, the amount of clothes that the average person owns these days. But it's just the way that people think about clothes. They don't want to repeat clothes. They don't want to wear clothes over and over again. They want to have the outfit that they wear once because they don't want to be seen in an outfit twice, especially something that they wore to a big event like a red carpet. We have a really bad idea when it comes to the way that we consume fashion generally. This is worldwide. This is not just in the US. This is in the UK. This is in other, European countries. This is in most countries, especially countries where people earn more money and there's more disposable income. So how do you change people's minds from wanting to fill their wardrobes and stack their wardrobes with loads of garments to being forced to buying really high quality Japanese raw denim, but it's going to cost you $300, $400, $500? Are consumers willing to spend money on stuff like that? I definitely agree with what some people are saying in the chat, where thrifting is definitely a solution, but there are so many people that don't like thrifting. I remember I was talking about thrifting in a past video, and one of the comments was like, why would I want to wear clothing that could potentially be worn by someone that's dead? Ew, that's disgusting. So there seems to be this general sentiment that secondhand clothing is disgusting. Still, I thought we had gone past that, but apparently not. So, we need to work all of that out. We need to see how we can change people's minds about that in mass. But yeah, that's just the update on kind of what's been going on TikTok, the TikTok frenzy, and all of these manufacturers exposing a lot of luxury brands. I'll be curious to see what you guys think. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about today, of course, the LVMH finalists were announced, and people have been asking me to actually talk about some of the LVMH designers. So I thought now would be a good opportunity for me to do just that. So in this stream, we're going to be talking about one of the finalists called Torishéju Dumi. And I find her work really interesting. I've known about her work for a while, actually, not too long, but a while. And I think her work is just interesting and really good to talk about. So for people that don't know who Torishéju Dumi is, she's a fashion designer that went to CSM. She graduated with her MA from Central St. Martin's. She's also an alumni of the Saraband Foundation, as you can see on the screen. She has a very extensive body of work in fashion, and she's worked for many different brands. She's worked under Phoebe Philo at Celine. She's also worked at Giles Deacon, Sibling London, and she's worked for my favorite brand of all time, as you guys know, Under Meister. So she's definitely a designer that I'm a huge fan of. If I was to describe her work, I think her work is very intellectual. She does look at a lot of historical references in her work. She references different cultures, and a lot of her work kind of finds that perfect medium between, design cues and design inspirations from different cultures like Nigeria, West Africa, and many other regions, but also mixes in Western design elements into her work. So that's something that, I've always appreciated about her work. So specifically, I wanted to talk about two of her collections and then talk about another like capsule collection she did that I thought was, really cool. But to show you something really cool, the first time I actually heard of her was when she was featured, I think it was in British Vogue, where she was kind of part of this cover, which you can also see Tolu Coker and Priya Alawadia, and they were talking about them being sustainability trailblazers. Tolu Coker and Priya Alawadia are two designers that I've talked about on this channel. So if you aren't aware about their work, just type their names and it will come up. My videos will come up, but I've broken down both of their work quite extensively. So those are designers that you can learn about in your own time. But that was kind of when I first learned about her work. So first off, we're going to look at this collection, which is her Spring Summer 2025 collection, which is called La Nef de Fuse, which basically translates perfectly to the Ship of Fools. This is very much inspired by Hieronymus Bosch's The Ship of Fools painting. The painting, actually, let me show you the painting for people that aren't too familiar, because there's actually like a funny parallels that you can draw between this collection and the painting itself. So let me just show you this quickly. Hieronymus Bosch, Ship of Fools. So this is the painting here. Let me see if I need it slightly bigger, if we can zoom into that. Maybe that one's higher quality. I need a higher quality version of it. Okay, here we are. That looks kind of clear. So Hieronymus Bosch's Ship of Fools painting essentially encapsulates, the painting is supposed to encapsulate the chaos of human nature. So when you look at the painting closely, you can see people indulging in, the just decadence and gluttony and just eating loads of food, and there's so much chaos going around the middle of the painting. When you look at the nun is singing and is so engrossed in what she's doing that she can't see the chaos that's happening around her. There's a part of the painting that you can't really see from this, but someone was like, I think cutting, from the top of the painting, cutting off a piece of meat from the top there. So the whole painting, and there's so many different parts of the painting that I could talk about forever, but that's not really the point of this video, kind of just talks about the chaos, and it's really just supposed to be a commentary on our propensity towards self-destruction as human beings. And that was kind of one of the main inspirations for her collection. Now, when you look at the collection, obviously there is a lot of chaos. Chaos, I think, is a general theme across a lot of her work. When you look at her work, there tends to be, things that we associate as ordinary, down to accessories like earrings, but just changed enough to where it makes you think. It draws your eyes towards those accessories, but it's not so ridiculous that it starts to look, like odd or like way too costumey or just like strange. So that's an aspect of her work that I've always liked, but that's also a theme that I've seen across multiple collections, not just one. So I'm saying shout out to Hieronymus Bosch. He was a real geek. Yeah, for sure. So in this collection, in lieu of the painting that was referenced, she really wanted it to reflect the chaos of our times. Of course, so much chaos is going on in our times right now, which is why there's a lot of deconstruction in the work in this collection. Like I said, there are different elements that have been shifted to create a sense of chaos. There were these really nice pearl earrings that were shifted for this sort of, to have this sort of chaotic vibe. You can see the tie tied backwards on the neck instead of the front. So those are a lot of the elements that were added to the collection to add this sense of chaos throughout. A lot of people were saying most people flock to what is familiar, not what is intriguing. I see what you guys mean in terms of the reference to the painting, because that's something that I always critique, that a lot of fashion designers tend to reference the same paintings constantly and stuff like that. So that's definitely something that is common in fashion, something I do have an issue with, and I have voiced my opinion on that. Also, you can see a lot of offcuts of the scraps of her clothing have been used to sculpt a lot of the garments. That's where there's sort of this sort of deconstructed element coming in. It's sort of what she says in her own words, a decay of decadence. It's kind of like this sort of thing that's supposed to, you know, look like something that has failed. I know one of her direct references in this collection was those pieces were supposed to reference a failed life jacket, because when a life jacket fails, it doesn't inflate completely. So the offcuts are being used to kind of inflate certain aspects of the dress while other parts remain flat. That's an interesting reference that I thought. When I looked at this collection, what it did remind me of is elements from Comme des Garçons, because I've seen this kind of technique of using different materials and stuffing it to create certain shapes in a garment. But yeah, I definitely thought that was a cool one. The way she did it was very interesting. Culture said the black dress is interesting. You're talking about the earlier one with the offcuts used to sculpt the garments. I mean, I like those in general because I think they look weird but cool. And they're actually wearable. One of the issues, and I know this is something that some people have said in the chat when it comes to Comme des Garçons, is that it's not wearable because of how they sculpt the garments in the Comme des Garçons shows. I think this is like kind of taking a similar idea, but making it actually more wearable and something that you could actually potentially wear yourself. Let's see what Boaz is saying. The issue is that the intellectualism takes over the design. Your job as a fashion designer is to be a fashion designer. I don't think so. I don't necessarily agree with that, because I think that fashion exists on a spectrum. So if this side of the spectrum is clothing that is totally supposed to be wearable and commercial, that's on one side of the spectrum. And then on the other side of the spectrum is just art. And every brand can decide where they sit on that spectrum. So let's say a more pragmatic, minimal brand like Giussana or maybe Phoebe Philo, that's more commercial but beautifully made and really nice, is more on this side of the spectrum that's close to, you know, practical commercial clothing that's made for people to wear. And then Comme des Garçons mainline will be all the way on this side of, you know, the art spectrum, where most of it is not really intended for people to wear, and a lot of it looks ridiculous and wouldn't make sense to wear. But there is an artistic conversation that Rei Kubo is trying to have through those garments. The whole point is not necessarily for them totally, for all the clothing to totally be wearable in that sense. So I just think it depends on where a designer actually wants to sit on that spectrum, rather than, you know, designers having to be commercial or having to design through the lens of like a certain thing. So yeah, I just think it depends. It depends on what the designer is going for. I love your comments on commercial success and avant-garde designers, by the way. It feels very relevant to this conversation. Yeah, I think designers just have to choose, you know, where they want to sit, to be honest. I think that's up to them. That's honestly up to them. So yeah, this was one of the collections that was recent that a lot of people were talking about. Another collection that I want to talk about. So one collection which you can see via the Met here. It's called Mami Water, which is quite funny. as a naming for, you know, a capsule collection. But essentially, this collection has a lot of dress forms. It is inspired by, it has a lot of like Western African historical inspirations, which I find really cool. For people that don't actually know, so in Nigeria, what we call mami water is actually a mermaid. So when I was in my village, when I used to live in a village in Nigeria, there would be all these folklore tales about certain rivers that do not go to that river at night because loads of people have died there, because mermaids live there, and you know, they will sing to you and lure you in and then drown you, basically, or like transform you into a mermaid and you'll be in the sea forever. Those were the kind of folklore tales that we used to hear. Did I believe it? Not necessarily, but did I go to the rivers to find out if they were there? Also not. But so it's a very common phrase that we use in Nigeria, and that served as, you know, the inspiration for that piece, which I found really interesting. That inspiration was also used on many different aspects of the garment. So for example, when you look at this capsule collection, she has transformed different accessories using these, you know, like wave and ocean like waveform. So in Nigeria, we have this thing that we call like a gele. It's like a head tie. This is what Nigerian women wear. This is part of our traditional dress. So she's taken more like Western fabrics and more things like wools and cottons and transformed those using the same fabric that she used for that capsule collection into like Nigerian and West African shapes. So now when you go back to looking at the capsule collection, you can see some of the head forms that she's created. That's kind of what it's referencing, which is really cool because it's like a really cool way to use those garments and to use those fabrics to create interesting accessories that's really cool to wear, but also referencing a very traditional way of dressing in West Africa, right? So I thought this was really cool. I really enjoyed the way that she transformed things using this sort of mami water idea, which I thought was really funny when I saw the name of it. But you can see the different ways that she's used this. This is also another element that she's done. So one of the themes of her work that I find more interesting than a lot of others, to be honest, is she takes elements of beauty. And I think this was a big focus in her Spring Summer 24 collection, if I'm not mistaken, which we can talk about. But she uses elements of beauty and tries to find elements of beauty and transform them to kind of change our viewpoint and our vantage point when we look at it. So she's taken like hair, elements of hair and locks, and kind of turn that into like a head accessory in a way, which is really cool. So it's like a locks hat in a way. It's like she's called it a crown. She specifically called it like a crown, which is so cool. I find that so interesting how she's created that. And she even made, I think in this collection, she made a beret using that fabric. I can't seem to find it, but I remember at the time there was, okay, yeah, here it is. So she also had a beret in the same style, which I thought was also really cool. So even though this was a capsule collection, I liked the referencing, I liked the research, and I liked how she's transformed that into garments. Yeah, she's Brazilian and Nigerian, so that's where the West African elements are coming from in her work. For guys that don't know, she's Nigerian Brazilian. Someone said they have tails like that in South Carolina. What about the mermaids that will eat you up in the sea? Yeah, those are some of the tales that I grew up around when I was younger, to be fair. Yeah, it's really, really insane actually when you think about it. It's quite ridiculous. But that's just kind of what people believe. It's not really, you know, much you can do about it, to be fair. But going through her Instagram, because I wanted to talk about her Spring Summer 24 collection, because talking about elements of beauty and kind of how she transforms that, as you can see here, this is kind of what she's done with a lot of the crown pieces in her Spring Summer 24 collection. But what she did here, she used, and you can see her research, she's looked at a lot of like Nigerian traditional dress and has woven that in with elements of beauty that she superimposed onto the garment. So yes, it is inspired by, different folk tales and Nigerian inspiration. I'm just trying to see if we can get the runway images from that collection, because I think that would be really cool to look at. I guess we could just look at it this way. So she's taken like, misdirections of different beauty things like hair, makeup, and just transformed our use of that, putting them on the arms in a weird way, taking this sort of lock thing and turning those into tops or skirts and using that as details in the skirts, or using that as a detail for the armholes for the garments, which is really cool. So that was something that really interested me, an element that really interested me when it came to this collection. As you can see, one of the hero pieces in this collection was actually this shoulder detail. Let me zoom in so you guys can see it. This shoulder detail, this kind of indented shoulder detail, I really love, and it's something that she used across like the vest, the dresses, the jackets had that detail on the shoulders. So I absolutely love that. Someone is saying, honestly, it's very CDG, beautiful cultural references. But I'm not excited by it. I've seen this probably before, probably at London Fashion Week. I mean, with designers, it takes a lot of time to like find their, like aesthetically, to find the aesthetic in that sense. But I like where her thought process is going, especially the references. I really, really do enjoy the references that she uses. So that's why I'm always interested to look at her work. Something that really interested me, because it was really referencing some West African silhouettes, was the use of fabrics. Because this is why I said that a lot of her work kind of finds that middle ground between fabrics that we are used to or accustomed to in the West, but then also, fabrics, silhouettes and stuff and references in West Africa. Because in West Africa, what she's done, I'll show you a reference to what she's done with this skirt, right? So in Nigeria specifically, and in West Africa, this is like a common thing. We have this thing that we call a wrapper. We call it a wrapper, but wrapper, you guys can call it a wrapper. And it's usually made in fabrics, different fabrics in Nigeria. We use like different mixes of cotton, silk, and rayon to make different things like ashoke, which you guys would have seen. So this is kind of what ashoke is. As it says, ashoke is a traditional hand-woven fabric from Nigeria, primarily associated with the Yoruba people of the southwestern part of Nigeria. This is what it looks like. So this fabric here is what we refer to, just kind of like a piece of fabric like this is what we refer to as a wrapper in Nigeria. And what we do is we take this fabric and tie it around our bodies in different ways. So I don't know why these images are like blurry. So some ways, sometimes you just put it over your shoulder like that, like how you can see the woman doing it here. She has that fabric over her shoulder. And then you have some men put it over their shoulders as well. Some women tie it around their waist into a skirt. So there's many here. You can see again how she's used part of the fabric to make a head tie, and then part of it she's put over her shoulder. Sometimes women use it for skirts. So she's kind of taken fabrics and draped it in a very similar way, I noticed, with a lot of like the skirts and the pieces in the collection. So that was something when I saw the collection, I was like, oh, that's a really interesting reference. I like how she's done that. Like even here, when you look at the skirt, you can see there's kind of like that wraparound element to the skirts, right? That I was like, oh, that's really interesting how she's done that. Let me just adjust my hat. So I thought that was really cool. Yeah, like people are saying like an Indian sari, exactly. And that was one of the things that she was trying to achieve through this collection. Like even here, you can kind of see across the collection, there's kind of like that vibe of like a wraparound sort of detail to the way that the skirts were designed. Here, of course, you can see the shoulder detail that I was talking about more closely. What I love about this, because a lot of designers, I think it's very important to have very obvious signatures in your work. I think this is something that could become one of her strong signatures. I think she makes really strong accessories. Like I've said, those sort of mismatched accessories that she makes, whether it's the crowns, the headwear, referencing West African themes. I showed you guys like the really weirdly shaped pearl earrings that I think are really fun. So that sort of indented shoulder detail is really cool. I like to see how she uses that. I think it could really work on really commercial pieces like a t-shirt, right? If you have a t-shirt with a big indented shoulder, kind of like what you guys are saying is kind of, you know, the comme des garçons thing, right? That would be really cool just to wear as a t-shirt in the summer when the weather is hot, but also not have a basic looking outfit. That is really cool. So she can implement that in many different ways and ways that can make money. Obviously, this was her runway debut in Paris, and it was a big deal that Naomi Campbell walked on the show. But you can see here she's wearing this piece that's layered with a shirt and then a coat that also has that indented shoulder detail that I think could definitely be a winner for the brand. So here, once again, you can see a lot of her references and a lot of the influences that she's used when it comes to her garments. So yeah, those are my quick thoughts on her work. Really, really a fan. I think she's still ironing out, like in terms of her distinctive design language, but I think she's working towards it. And I think there are definitely many elements to her work that I find really interesting. Here you can see some more of the West African influences. Here you can see, once again, what I was talking about with the wraparound aesthetic that you tend to see in West Africa. I like what she's doing with the headwear. I like the accessories, kind of what she's doing there. So I think there's a lot to work with. And that's kind of the thing about the LVMH prize, especially if you win one of the awards that are part of the LVMH prize, they offer mentorship. And when they give you the mentorship, that's where these people can then help you really refine your thought process into, garments that sell into a more commercial sense. That's when they can start doing those things. So I think when she gets more mentorship from those people, I think we're going to see, those pieces be refined. But one of the reasons why I'm a big fan of hers is a lot of her inspiration points don't come from the tired, worn out inspiration points I'm so tired of seeing in fashion. It's coming from West Africa. She's referencing different tribes in West Africa, different gestures in the dressing from different cultures around the world. So that's something that I find really fascinating about her work, which is why I'm always interested in it. I think too many brands always reference the same historical periods of art and the same, Western references that we've seen over and over again. I don't think there's anything wrong with a Western reference. I think that Western culture and history is very vast and rich. I just don't understand why people reference the same thing in Western culture when Western culture is so deep. Art history in the West is so deep. There's so many elements to it. There's so many iconic artists. I find it strange that people end up referencing the same things. So that's what fascinates me about her work the most, that, her inspiration points, aren't coming from those tired and washed out places. So there's more to see, and I think there's many more to come from her work and from her practice. So I'll be looking forward very much to seeing what else she does. Are you talking about Louise Bourgeois? Louise Bourgeois is one of them. I know that Simone Rocha likes a Louise Bourgeois reference, but it is a bit of a tired reference, if I'm going to be very honest with you. It is quite tired. But yeah, as you guys can see, I've just been scrolling through her Instagram, so you can see a lot of her references to, hair and West African culture and history and clothing. But yeah, those are kind of my thoughts on her work. And in future streams, we will be looking at other of the LVMH prize finalists. We'll be looking at their work one by one. So that should be, really, really fun. But yeah, before I go, if you guys have any questions, let me know. We can go into a quick after hours. You guys can ask me whatever questions you have. And then I shall be taking my leave, changing and getting some well-deserved sleep. So let me know what you guys want me to talk about, if there are any concerns. If not, I shall be disappearing into the ether. What happened to Steve O. Smith? I decided, because I don't want the stream to go on for too long, because I've been doing quite long streams and it's tiring, that I'll just do it in the next stream. I'll talk about his work in the next stream. He said you tried to slightly edit the description. Stop stop watching my every move, Luke. I did edit the description, to be honest. That is what happened. Are you going to do a book review of Fashionopolis? It's something I can do if you want me to. I just think that most of the things that's written about in Fashionopolis, I've kind of talked about quite a lot, to be honest. And also, when I finish my series on Patreon or YouTube channel memberships on how luxury lost its luster, I kind of want to go in a different direction for a while and not talk about the industry and talk about more fashion history on the Patreon. Before I go back to talking about industry stuff, because I feel like I've been talking about industry for 2 years straight, to be honest. So I feel like it's good to talk about something else. Maybe we can talk about Madeleine Vianney for a few months, or a different designer, rather than just talk about the industry. Do you think Versace will change aesthetically now with the new takeover? I hope they keep paying respect to the heritage. Yeah, I don't really know. In the last stream that I did about Prada taking over Versace, I did talk about what would happen if the aesthetic looks similar to Miu Miu. What would an aesthetic that kind of draws the line between Miu Miu, Prada, and Versace look like? We talked about that. I don't really know, to be honest with you. I have no clue. Of course, Dario Vitale came from Miu Miu. He was a Miu Miu designer during the successful time of Miu Miu. So people are just jumping to the assumption that he's going to make Versace look like Miu Miu. We don't really know until we see it, to be honest. You will be talking a lot about industry due to the economic situation too. So give yourself a break. Exactly. That's also a good point. Because of the economic situation, I've been talking about about the industry a lot, and I've been pissing a lot of people because I've inherently been critiquing Trump's decisions, and you're apparently not allowed to critique anything that Trump does, apparently. I was listening to the Angela Bowie biography, and she said she walked in on Mick Jagger and David Bowie sleeping in the same bed, but said that's a very normal British thing. Is that true? I mean, yes. I mean, I don't know what people do in different countries, but in the UK, like when I go on holiday with my friends, especially when I was younger, if you don't have money to have separate hotels, which I didn't when I was younger, you just sleep on the same bed. If you go on holiday somewhere with a friend, that's completely normal. I thought that was normal for a lot of people. Like go on holiday with a bunch of like male friends, 2 people sleep on a bed, 1 person sleeps on the couch. Like that's completely normal. I didn't know that wasn't normal. Yeah, I think it's normal. Will Loewe totally fall off once the Parenza boys take over? I think let's just wait and see what they do first before speculating whether their Loewe will work or not. Okay, some people are saying that's very normal. Yeah, holiday with the lads. Sometimes 3 men might be sleeping on the same bed. If the bed is big enough. I think that's completely normal. So you're saying not round here, partner. Someone is saying the homophobia in the US is unhinged. Yeah, I think you guys think way too much about this sort of stuff. Like, is it a thing where you are that if 2 men sleep on the bed, oh my god, like it's really not that serious. It's just not that serious. You just sleep on the bed and wake up. I thought that was so normal for men to share a bed. I didn't think that was strange. Because I think you're based in the US, right? But I could be wrong. I think you're based in the US. Someone said, by the way, if you are into fashion and you're homophobic, I have news for you. Fashion isn't for you. How would you like to know that some of your favorite designers are in fact gay? So if you're homophobic, you know, most of you are wearing garments designed by a man that's gay. So yeah, it's kind of strange, to be fair, to be like really, really into fashion and be homophobic. That's kind of like odd. Yeah, what other questions do you guys have? Let's see. I'm not trying to be weird or nothing, but like every motel has like 2 beds or a friend sleeps on the floor. At sleepovers, like it's a joke that you use whatever as a blanket. No. So first of all, not everywhere has 2 beds. Sometimes where you stay, you might have 1 bed. And there is absolutely no way I'm going to break my back sleeping on the floor if there's a bed there, especially if it's big enough to fit like 2 men. Or like multiple men. So yeah, that's crazy. That's actually crazy. why is Luke becoming my bot? Please either like if you're enjoying the stream, it will help Fashion Roadman a lot. Luke has turned into a bot. Blink 3 times if you're okay. Any other questions, guys? Any other questions or concerns before I take my leave? So it's like, it's not a granddad cap. This is like a sailor hat. Are you talking about the hat I'm wearing? It's a sailor hat. I'm channeling my Ardemeister. I'll show you guys something. 1 second. So one of my favorite Sebastian Munier collections is this Spring Summer 20 Ardemeister collection, which was about like being at sea and kind of had a lot of nautical inspirations. But a lot of the things that are in this collection are just thrifted pieces that look similar. So that's one of my favorite Sebastian Munier collections. Ardemeister SS20. So yeah. For guys that didn't know. Yeah, it's kind of sailor and military, because military hats, right? This part is not soft the way it is. This part is not doesn't have this like ruffle the way it has it. So it's like a hybrid. The military hat is more like substantial and rigid on the top. John Lennon wore that kind of hat. Okay, Culture is asking me, do you think there'll be any real world effects from those TikTok videos beside folks making videos to gain followers? I think, if anything, it's just the education that it created. So it's more the fact that people that didn't know now know how much things cost, how things are produced, which is why there has been a lot of outrage for the most part on social media, to be honest. So I think that's the big thing that it will do. It's more of like a media campaign to kind of raise awareness, more so than anything else. Someone said train conductor. I don't mind looking like a train conductor. Nothing wrong with that. Shout out to the train conductors there, working hard. Shout out to my fellow train conductors out there, doing the damn thing, making sure that everyone is able to use the public transport safely. Let me see if there's any comments I missed. Old-timey policeman. Oh gosh, you guys are funny. You guys are actually hilarious. How wouldn't you know where your stuff is made unless you never look at the tag? I guess some people just don't care or care to even look into these things. People just assume a lot of things. You'd be surprised how many people don't look at the tags of what they wear. And even the tags don't really give you all the information on where a thing is made. Because like I've said, some things are finished in certain places, so they're allowed to say made in that specific country. Even if essentially it isn't really made in that country. So that happens very frequently. Someone said, bro is never going to wear that hat again, reading these comments. Oh, don't worry. I cannot be bullied out of wearing what I like to wear. What I like to wear is what I like to wear. If people don't like it, they don't like it. That's fine. I think fashion is subjective. Everyone is valid to have an opinion. If you don't like my hat, I think it's completely fine. I think I'm very okay with the people that do not like my hat, but I still wear it because I personally like it. And I think fashion is about wearing what you personally like, regardless of what anyone else thinks. That's kind of where personal style comes in. If you only wear what you only see other people like, you end up looking like everyone else. So yeah, don't worry. I don't mind. You guys can decimate my hat if you like. I won't take offense at all. How likely do you think it is that weaken the trade with the US makes the UK feel more cozy about rejoining the EU? So first of all, I don't think the UK is going to rejoin the EU. The reason why the UK can never rejoin the EU, or if they did rejoin the EU, it would take like a monumental effort, is because if the UK is able to leave and join the EU whenever it likes, it sets a precedent that any country can just leave the EU when it doesn't benefit them and then join the EU when it benefits them. So that's not, like, I don't see why the EU would allow that to happen. So that's why they wouldn't allow the UK to join the EU. However, I do think that this whole thing has definitely improved the relationships between the UK and the EU because they've been working together when it comes to the tariff stuff. I've seen a lot of conversations around China working with the EU. China has been working with the Spanish government, for example, to kind of see and kind of formulate a strategy on how to fight these tariffs. So there's a lot of togetherness with the UK and the EU, which I didn't see closer to when Brexit first happened. But I can't see the EU allowing the UK to rejoin because it just sets the wrong precedent. It's like people will start complaining, why is the UK able to just join and dip when they like? And then it would cause too many issues. I like hearing people's ideation behind their personal phase that I don't necessarily care for. Oh yeah, talking about like fashion being subjective and stuff. I totally agree. Has there been talk about the UK rejoining the EU? There has, because I think that not everyone, but a lot of people that voted for the EU weren't the most educated, and not educated in terms of like education. They just weren't educated on the pros and cons of leaving the EU. So there were sailors, there were fishermen, sorry, that thought that with us leaving the EU, they would have a certain part of the sea to be able to fish. They weren't able to negotiate that. A lot of them lost their business. So many people, lost their business and all those kind of things. And a lot of people have suffered financially, lost businesses. A lot of people are leaving the UK. There's a stat I saw where the UK has lost the most millionaires in the history. Let me actually get the exact numbers. The UK lost most millionaires. Lose most millionaires. 1 second. Let me see what the actual figures are. Okay. This is the Financial Times talking about by 2028. But there's a recent stat that came out about 1 second. Let me actually find this for you guys. Okay, here we go. So it's the UK has lost 10,800 millionaires to overseas countries in 2024, more than double the number who left in 2023. So one of the reasons is with us leaving the EU, certain businesses, not all, but certain businesses suffered because if most of your customers are in the EU and your business is predicated on doing business with EU countries, it doesn't make sense to be based in the UK anymore because you're just paying, import and export duties that, you would just skip if you just go to an EU country and produce there and continue to sell and buy from the other EU countries that you do business with. So a lot of people that have businesses that are predicated on working with EU countries have all jumped ship to the EU, or at least moved their production somewhere into an EU country. So all these issues are the reason why they have all these polls and surveys where they do polls, and it's like, if you could vote for Brexit nowadays, would you, like in 2025, would you vote to leave the EU? And now majority of people are saying they would have voted to remain in the EU. Not everyone, but majority. So yes, there have been, I've seen conversations here and there on the UK rejoining the EU, but I just don't logistically think it will happen. I think the UK is a very important economy, and that's one of the big reasons why the EU wanted to have the UK as part of the EU, and they kind of weren't happy about the UK wanting to leave, but it is what it is. We are where we are. I think we just have to kind of deal with it. So yeah, just is what it is. After a long day of clocking the tea, he sits down, puts on a sailor hat, and begins his live stream. As may I tell you, bro, a view says scornfully. The roadman says, that's all right, tearfully. Interesting assessment. Oh my gosh, that's funny. Andrew saying, again, this isn't fully true. The government has based their figures on millionaires leaving based on them changing their LinkedIn locations. It's a fallacy. I mean, I don't know how they've done a survey, but it is quite obvious, even just common sense, why people that have businesses that rely heavily on the EU have all moved to the EU. Even there's so many even fashion companies I work with. I remember when Brexit was about to happen, all of them started building production in Ireland, and all of them were moving to Ireland. In fact, the fashion company I was working for at the time was huge. It was actually the biggest supplier of clothing in Europe. So this is a huge company. And they moved their main office from London to Ireland, their whole office from London to Ireland. From the UK to an EU country, which is Ireland. Ireland is part of the EU for people that don't know. So, and that's a massive company. So just based on that experience alone, I know that most businesses that are in that, position would have done that. The more I look at his hat, the more I want one. Are you living in the UK or the US? Because what are these streaming hours? So my sleeping pattern is just messed up. So I actually go to the gym. You'll find me really weird when I tell you this. So I normally stream and then I go to the gym after. So right now it's like 1:20 a.m. Let's say I hop off the stream at 2 a.m. I'm going to go to the gym and I'm probably going to be there till like 4 a.m. And then I'm going to sleep at 4 a.m. and wake up at like 12 p.m. That's why my sleeping pattern is always weird. That's why I'm always streaming really late. That's what I always do. What were you doing earlier today? You look more dressed, but well, actually, do you have pants on? Oh, I was out. I was outside. That's why I'm all dressed up. I came back home in time for the stream. I want to bedazzle your hat. I wouldn't mind. Customize my hat. What do you want to do to my hat? And yes, Luke, this is very true. My gym is like a really big gym, but for some reason, it's like one of those like bodybuilder gyms. It has like 4 floors. It's quite massive. And they do like boxing classes in my gym. So there's like a whole boxing section. There's a jiu-jitsu section in my gym also. So there's like a whole jiu-jitsu section with mats and stuff. And considering how many people go to that gym and all that sort of stuff, it's completely empty past like 2 a.m. Like completely empty. When I went there yesterday, I was there yesterday at like 3 a.m.-ish. It was completely empty. I was the only person across all 4 floors. It was actually quite spooky. Like I couldn't, when I work out in the gym, I don't listen to music because I'm like, anything can happen. I'm the only one in this gym. There could be a serial killer that's watching my every move. So I have to be prepared for the for anything crazy to happen, as I'm the only person in the gym. So yeah, I don't listen to music most times, but it is cool that whatever equipment I want to use, it's free. That's why I do it. I stay up smoking weed and watching movies until 4 a.m. and wake up at 11. You win. Of course it is. What sane person would go to the gym at 2 a.m.? Yeah, I know it's not normal. I'm not a normal person. It's definitely not normal to go to the gym at those stupid times. Like literally, I walk to the gym. Let me show you guys my step count, because I normally walk to the gym and back, and my gym is quite a distance away. So that's kind of my fitness for the day. So yesterday, not sure you guys can see, but I did like 13,000 steps, because that's how many steps it takes to go to gym and back. You can't really see it. It's not focusing. Okay, you can see it now. 13,040 steps. And I walked the equivalent of 9.54 kilometers yesterday. So this morning, I'm going to do another like close to 10K walk to and from the gym. So that's my exercise. That's also why it takes me so long, because I walk for a very long time to the gym and then I walk for a very long time back. They need more gyms that are for us night owls. Luke said, "What is wrong with you? 10 kilometers. You're a nutcase." What do you listen to when you're walking? So I normally listen to podcasts. That's so all the fashion podcasts I listen to. Let me open my phone actually and see what the last podcast I listened to. So I'll tell you guys some of the podcasts I listen to. So I listened to Rachel Omondi's podcast, The Cutting Room Floor. That's a really nice podcast to accompany me on my really long walks. I listen to Fashion Neurosis by Bella Freud. I listen to the BOF podcast, which is really good. I listen to Fashion No Filter. I listen to Articles of Interest. Let me look at my list on my phone. What else do I listen to? Style Zeitgeist, Eugene Rabkin, really good podcast, especially when he does those episodes with Philippe and they look at they review like Fashion Week and they do a whole review of it. That's really cool. Who else? What other podcast do I listen to? Those are like the main ones. I listen to other podcasts and stuff here and there, and then also certain YouTube videos where I don't need to look at the like images on the screen because I kind of have an idea what they're talking about. I'll just listen to that because I have YouTube Premium, so I can just like, you know, lock my phone and put it in my pocket and then just listen to YouTube videos. So I do that as a lot too when I'm walking. So yeah, that's kind of what I do when I'm at the gym or when I'm walking to the gym. My gym is in my building. I only do 12K steps a day. The thing is though, so the reason why my 13K steps is such a far distance is because obviously my strides are really big because I have really long legs. Like normally when I walk with friends, they always tell me to slow down because I don't realize how big my strides are naturally. So I cover a lot of distance when I walk normally, even when I'm walking slowly. So yeah, my 13K steps is a very far distance. Angie says, so when do you listen to music? I don't really listen to music that much. I'm more of like a podcast / YouTube video listener. I'm not really a music listener. I listen to music here and there, but not very frequently, to be honest. Not very frequently. Not Tarek calling me a big stepper. Also, Tarek, by the way, thank you very much. I always see your donations that come out of nowhere because sometimes you donate to my PayPal and I see it. So thank you very much. I appreciate it when you do that. And please don't feel like you have to keep doing that. But when you do it, I'm very appreciative of that. Fashion and music is hand in hand for me. That's wild. Yeah, I feel like everyone in fashion kind of has their focus. Some people always listen to music because like pop culture and fashion come hand in hand, and like you have to know kind of what's going on in music because those are the artists that will be in the red carpet and blah 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 blah. So I listen to music that's fashion adjacent, but I see it as research more so than listening to music, because I'm listening to their music only because I need to know about Chapel Rowan, for example, because of fashion. So that's why I listen to her music, not because I'm per se the music person or that interested in music. So yeah, I'm more of like a podcast person. Luke said 10 kilometers like walking from Heathrow to Kew Gardens. Insane. Oh gosh. Why don't you fast for 30 days? Why would I fast for 30 days? Do you like ASAP Rocky's style? I swear everybody loves his style, but I don't care for it. No, I like his style. I think he dresses really cool. But then again, once again, fashion is subjective. So you don't have to like his style because other people like it. And you don't have to dislike it because other people dislike it, if you know what I mean. It's either you like it or you don't, but I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I think he dresses quite cool. I think he has an interesting way. And I think his style has a lot of range. So he can wear so many different things and pull it off. And it kind of works with him. So, yeah. And you said I'm unsubscribing. How dare you not listen to music? Do you lift weights at the gym or what? How much can you bench? How much can you deadlift? Yes, I lift weights at the gym. I don't just do cardio. So okay, bench my bench press is probably my weak point. I consider myself to have quite a weak chest, to be honest. So I never actually test my 1 rep max because I think it's dangerous. I don't want to get injured testing my 1 rep max. So I just slowly increase how much I do. And then I think there are like calculations that you can do for your 1 rep max based on that. But when I go to the gym normally, I bench press 105 kilograms and I do 4 sets of 8 reps, basically. So I don't know what that would be in terms of a 1 rep max. I don't know, but that's kind of what I do. And I built that up slowly from like 45 kilos, 4 sets of 8 reps over the course of like years. Same thing. So deadlift, I usually deadlift 150 kilos, 4 sets of 8 reps. Once again, sometimes if I'm tired, I do 6 reps and I might do 3 sets of 6 reps. But 150 kilos deadlift. But once again, I've never tested my 1 rep max. So I actually could not tell you how much I 1 rep max deadlift. But that's normally what I do when I go to the gym, basically. So yeah, who knows what I can 1 rep max? I don't even know. I couldn't tell you. Exactly what Ray is saying. That's why I don't do it. Stay away from the 1 rep max. Exactly. Because it's just not safe. Like the only people that should be testing their, 1 rep max, to be very honest with you, are people that compete in weightlifting. So like power lifters, those kind of people, because it actually is predicated on that. But why would you risk like the joint damage? You could rip a tendon or a ligament. You can strain your muscle. Like it's just not worth it. It's really, really just not worth it. Like, yeah. So I wouldn't suggest anyone to. I think 1 rep max is for people that just want to like lift something for their ego, but the amount of risk, especially because like a deadlift, if you don't do a deadlift with good form, you risk really damaging your back. Like you can actually like have a herniated disc. there's so many things that you can damage your spine. There's so many things that can go wrong if you don't do a deadlift with good technique, especially if you continue doing that over time, because you're like ego lifting weights that you can't safely lift. So that's my advice to anyone who, you know, is lifting weights or weightlifting or whatever. Yeah, guys, please don't test your 1 rep max. You can do it once in a while, but please don't do it consistently. Please do not do that. You're going to see the same muscle hypertrophy doing the 3 sets of, you know, 3 sets of 6 reps or 8 reps, working at an intensity of, you know, 70 to 80% of your max effort, to be honest. So yeah, that's kind of my advice on that. Okay, Sona's, oh, thank you very much for the super chat here. Opinion on the follow page. I'm going to upgrade my keyboard 55 to a Dreambag 55. It's better in every single way. Thoughts on the brand and the Dreambag 55. So the funny thing is that I don't know, because I have friends that have their bags, and some of them are like really good, and some of them they like really swear by. However, I've also seen like people online say that some of their bags are not like that great, like they're not constructed that great, and like a lot of people have issues with the quality. So I couldn't really tell you, because I don't have a lot of experience myself with the brand, and I also don't have a lot of experience with with like going to their factories or working with the team, or I haven't done any project with them either. So yeah, there's not really much I can say about the brand, to be honest. But yeah, I make it a thing, if I don't have a lot of experience with a brand, I don't per se tell people if it's like good or bad, because that I'll just be lying to you at that point. And I certainly don't want to do that. If there's one thing I don't want to be, is a liar. What, people are still talking about the gym stuff? Oh, here we go. Here you guys go. You guys are still talking about gym. Someone was asking me if I if I follow bodybuilding, and I don't really follow bodybuilding. So yeah, I don't really follow bodybuilding. I mean, what do you guys mean when you say follow bodybuilding? I know who like Mitchell Hopper is, if that's kind of what you're alluding to, but that's not really bodybuilding. That's strongman. Who's a bodybuilder that I know? C-Bum. C-Bum is a bodybuilder I know. He's famous. Who else? Yeah, I wouldn't really say I follow bodybuilding, to be fair. Yeah, but everyone knows who Ronnie Coleman is. I'm more talking about like more like new age bodybuilders, and not like Ronnie Coleman. I feel like everyone knows who Ronnie Coleman is. What fashion designers have an interesting take on athletic clothes? Doug Bickenberg. Doug Bickenberg, I think, has a cool take on athletics clothes, to be honest. Let's see. I'm trying to think. Athletic wear, interesting athletic wear. I don't really know, because I don't really look at like different designers for athletic wear. I look at them for like more like coats and, you know, intellectual stuff. I think Saul Nash is a designer that his clothing is a lot about movement and stuff, and I think he has some interesting stuff there. I think one of the really cool brands that came out of London that merged sportswear and tailoring really well was Cottweiler. I'm not sure how many of you know the brand Cottweiler, but I haven't heard anything about Cottweiler for a long time. I know they were having financial issues. I think they even closed down at one point. But I think Cottweiler was a brand that really used to do the sort of sportswear and tailoring stuff really well. Also, this is a good point. Matthew Williams, Alix used to do that well too, actually. So that's a really good point. Oh yeah, I know who Obi Vincent is. Yeah, I think he's cool. I know who Obi Vincent is. So yeah. Let's see. Let me see some of the. Is post archive faction? Is that sports? Is that athletic wear though? That's more like in the realm of tech wear. I see PAF as more like tech weary sort of stuff rather than athletic wear. So yeah, I think it depends. How would you guys categorize PAF? I'm curious. Let me wait for you guys' response. Okay, let me see what interesting, thanks for that. If you were to compare the Keepall 55 and the Dream Bag 55, do you think one looks better? Really curious what the fashion crowd thinks. Okay, that's cool. I think most people would go with the Keepall because it's just like brand recognition, you know, that's how the average consumer is. To be very honest, just because I'm just I just don't like having stuff that, you know, most people have. I like to be individual is one of the big reasons why if it was me, I would go for the Dream Bag 55, to be very honest with you. But once again, I'm not too privy. I'm not that well versed on Foiler Page's quality. So I can't really speak to it. But if I was to choose, I would go with the Dream Bag 55 personally. But people in the chat, what would you go with? Dream Bag 55 or Keepall 55? What would be the bag that you would go with personally? I'm curious to know what you guys would do in the chat. When I was in school, my draping teacher was a super sweet old Southern gay man. And one summer, he threw a party and his house was covered in sexy naked bodybuilder windows. That's hilarious. Very explicit, but you know. Oh my gosh. Geez, thank you very much, Martin. Martin is feeling really generous today. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the super chats. Someone is saying only have experience with Keepalls. Yeah, that will tend to be the case. That more people have experience with the Keepall 55 than the Dream Bag. But Andrew votes the Dream Bag. Okay, Culture is saying she doesn't see post archive faction as athletic. Yeah, same. Someone is asking me what do I wear to the gym? Sportswear. So funny enough, I wear really short shorts because unless like it, so my gym split is push pull legs. The only day I don't wear really short shorts is on the push day because I don't need to like squat into crazy positions. But when I used to wear longer shorts, so many of them ripped and it was like really embarrassing. Like I would go into like a really deep squat and you'll just hear this loud noise, just hear a loud rip. So over time, I learned that I need to wear those like really short shorts to get into my deep squats or into my like deep deadlift positions. So yeah, I'm more of a shorts guy in the gym, and I don't wear vests a lot. I normally wear t-shirts. Because I feel like wearing vests is really show-offy. Like I have really big biceps, and I feel like wearing vest when you have big biceps is very like, look at me, I've got big biceps. So I normally just wear like a t-shirt and shorts and then like training shoes. I have two shoes. So I have weightlifting shoes for when I squat. I only actually ever use them for squatting and that's it. And then I have like training shoes for everything else. So that's kind of what I normally wear to the gym, to be honest. Nothing too fancy, just a t-shirt and shorts. And then on a push day, I might wear like just joggers and a t-shirt and then my training shoes. Fashion people wear the lamest fits in the gym. How do you guys want me to wear like archive Andermellemeister to the gym? Is that what's going on here? That's funny. I love short shorts and oversized long sleeves. Yeah, I wear oversized long sleeves sometimes if it's like cold in the gym. It's probably going to be cold in the gym today, so I might wear a long sleeve. Let me see what the the temperature is. It's 8 degrees. Okay, I'll be fine. Oh, but it's going to be 6 degrees. Yeah, I'm going to have to wear my long sleeve. No, I don't wear Gymshark. I don't wear Gymshark. I don't do that. I don't wear Gymshark. Oh my gosh, Martin is really feeling generous today. Thank you very much. How can I thank you? For my final super chat, could we get a side by side on screen, perhaps? Okay, how can I do that? Give me a second to do that. I'd have to like make the image myself, I guess. So I guess I can do that in the background while I'm answering some more questions. So yeah, keep throwing your questions my way, guys. Your pronunciation of De Meister gives me whiplash. That's how do you think it's pronounced? Meister? That's how it's pronounced. It's Flemish. That's just how you say it. Sometimes I am being a bit lazy, or maybe I'm talking too fast, and I might say Meister. But you know, as someone who no one knows how to pronounce my name, I know how it is, so I try my best to pronounce names correctly if I know how to. If I don't know how to, then I just don't know how to. But I don't deliberately mispronounce people's names if I know how it's pronounced, because I know how annoying that is. As someone with an African name that no one can say properly, I know the struggle. So I get it. I get it. I say it the uncultured British way. I feel like I do an American accent every stream. There's always like a reason for me to do it, to be honest. Gosh. People saying the American accent is goated. Thank you very much, guys. I very much appreciate you guys liking my American accent, because some people love it and some people hate it. I don't think everyone's a fan of my American. I think it divides people. Okay, let me 1 sec. Let me just get this. Trying to get this Louis Vuitton Keeple on the split screen, and then we can do a poll in the chat. I can put a poll in the chat. Do the Valley Girl again. Nah. Just so y'all know, Brazil has a very strong Yoruba cultural community as a result of the slave trade. Yeah. I mean, I'm Nigerian, so obviously I would know that, but maybe some people don't know that. I think this is this you making like a callback to the designer I was talking about, like Torishéju? Because she's Brazilian and Brazilian Nigerian. Yeah, it's quite funny because I remember I ordered something once, and the person that came to my house was a Brazilian, and he looked at my name, and obviously my name is Nigerian. So he was like, "Are you Nigerian?" And then I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "You're Yoruba tribe, aren't you?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I was like, he was like, "How do you think I know?" And I was like, "Probably because you're Nigerian." Because he was white, and the only, unless you're just like cultured like that, the only white people that really know that much about Nigerian culture are Brazilians, because there's so many like Nigerians in Brazil. There's also like Yoruba culture that Brazilians are trying to preserve. So yeah, a lot of Brazilians just know a lot of like miscellaneous information about like Yoruba culture. So I just looked at him and I was like, "Yeah, you must be Brazilian." He was like, "How did you know?" I was like, "Educated guess." Educated guess. Educated guess. Wait, someone is saying it's the same way you say aesthetic. That sends me. How do Americans say aesthetic? Is it aesthetic? Aesthetic? Yeah, we say aesthetic. We pronounce all the different letters. Aesthetic. We pronounce all the different letters. It's kind of what we do. Aesthetic. Americans drag their words a lot, I've noticed. Aesthetic? What's the aesthetic? Do you like the aesthetic? It's a cool aesthetic. Luke, don't be mean to the Americans. You can't say Americans sound high. The USA is a very vast nation. It's like 50 different countries in one country. So there are so many different accents. So I think it just depends where you're talking about. Some accents I can see where you're going with the high thing, but I wouldn't say that's all Americans. I think that would be an overstatement. But yeah, Americans, how do you say aesthetic? Is it aesthetic? I mean, we say loads of words differently. Like aluminum, aeroplane. What's another one of those words? Airplane, aluminum. I love Americans, man. I just love bantering Americans because it's fun, but I actually love Americans. I think Americans are hilarious. And American media is undefeated. Wait, someone is correcting me. Americans think there are 52 states. Wait, what did I say earlier? I thought there are 50 states. I think earlier I said the US is like 50 little countries in one. Americans, correct me if I'm wrong, but I always thought there were 50 states in the US. I could be wrong though. Am I ignorant? Do I not know how many states there are in the USA? Do I not know? Am I wrong, guys? Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm the stupid one. Okay, Luke is saying there are 50, but Americans think there are 52. Wait, that can't be true. I don't believe that. There's no way that Americans don't know how many states there are in their own country. That's impossible. That can't be true. I don't believe that. I feel like if you go to school in the US, they must teach you how many states there are in the country. Sure, that must be like one of the first things that they teach you in school, right? At least I would guess. That's what I would guess. Someone said you would think. No, there's no way I'm believing that Americans don't know how many states are in the country that they're in. That's impossible. That's actually impossible. I refuse to believe that. Someone said geography is not our strongest subject. I understand if it's like, geography of, different nations. I understand that because I think it's to do with like how geography is taught. And to be honest, one big difference between like where I grew up, like in the UK, I also grew up in Nigeria, versus let's say the US, is that the UK, we have the benefit of taking a train and we're in a different country, France, and even within the UK, most people would have, driven to a different country. Like you can drive to Scotland from England. So the concept of like different countries having different cultures and different practices and sometimes even different traditional dress, you kind of just inherently learn that based on where you are. And I think that's why a lot of Europeans are really good with geography, because there's so many different countries and you can access so many different countries in Europe so easily. So that might be why, whereas the US is so big, you first have to learn about all the differences in all the different states. It's like learning about 50 separate countries. So that might be the geography thing. The only thing that surprises me, I do think that it isn't representative of, I think it is overblown. You know those videos that you see online where it's like they ask Americans really basic questions like name 2 countries that are not the USA, and people are struggling to name countries, which is insane, because even if you don't know a lot about geography, you should know what countries border the country you're in. So I think that as a base level of knowledge, every American should be able to say Canada and Mexico as like just off the bat. Name 2 countries that are not the USA, Canada and Mexico, and then you like go ahead with it. But I do think those videos are overblown, because I can imagine that they go around asking loads of people those questions, and most people get the answers to the questions, and then they just like edit out the ones that have really like silly answers, and then they're like, Americans don't know simple geography. I do think those things are overblown. I have so many American friends that don't they know more than 2 countries. I think that stuff is definitely overblown. There is like that weird narrative of like Americans can't name 2 countries. I don't believe all of that stuff. I just think it's good for content. But I don't think that most Americans are like that, especially educated Americans. I don't think that's a like reality. I think it's content. There's like Americans can't even name. Like, it's so weird. Let me also let me share this. So this is the side by side, by the way, so you guys can have this in the background. Actually, let me put myself on the side so you can see it that way. So I'm gonna put a poll in the chat, and then you guys can decide which one you think is the best one. Let me know which one you think is the best one. This is democracy. You guys can choose. Let me just do this poll. Some people already saying dream bag. You guys have to let me post the poll first. Give me a second. No, I'm not deciding between these bags. It's not me. It's just in general. It's just in general. Because Martin was being very generous in our after hours. So it's mainly for Martin. See what you guys say in the poll. A lot of people are saying the dream bag right now. 64% for the dream bag. Damn. 67%. Louis Vuitton is losing. Which one's which? Okay, so the dream bag. Sorry, the keeper is the Louis Vuitton one. The dream bag is the follow page one. Just in case you're like not aware. Person said I'd say never get a brown keeper. Is that like a thing? Like people don't get brown keepers? Thank you very much for the donation. Damn. We're gonna call Martin the generous person. Martin must be in a very good mood today. Thank you very much. Glad to be able to help, by the way. Make your decision. Andrew said I would take both if anyone is interested in giving them to me. Yeah, there are dream bags with similar colorways. Like there's a keeper that's like black monogram, like black and gray. So it's not so much the colorway, it's more like the print. I could change it to like the black one. Maybe that's like closer. You know, let me do that. Let me do that 1 second. Let me do that quickly. Maybe that makes it more fair in a way. Let me just adjust this image. Just so we have a fair comparison. So that was a good suggestion from someone in the chat. Have to make it more fair. But either way, I'm still going for the dream bag though. Like, I'm going to be honest with you. But obviously, it's a democracy. Everyone else can chime in, share their opinions, let us know what they think about the bag. You'd have to scoop part of my brain out to convince me to ever buy something with LV printed all over it. Damn, that's harsh. That's quite harsh. Quite harsh, sir. For the LV print is definitely a bit much for me, but I would get a Pharrell Speedy in a wacky color. It has to be ultra wacky. I find those kind of fun, but apart from that, no. But also, let me just change the image. That's the new image, guys. Martin says the embossed logo on the Dream Bag's outer pouch is so nice. Yeah. I don't have the image here, but it is nice. But you can see it on their website though. I'd be interested in seeing an aged Dream Bag. You're literally just paying for a logo. That's most luxury brands, to be honest. That's most luxury brands. Okay, people are saying, okay, Nicholas says, I have the black keeper with grey. The black keeper is definitely, at least I prefer it to the classic monogram because it's more understated. It's not like so in your face, right? Like you could actually wear like a black keeper with like a suit or something, or with many other types of garments too, and actually look normal. I feel like with the the classic print, it's just it's screaming at you from a mile away. It's just too much for me, honestly. Most luxury brands don't have this much logo plastered all over them. Yeah. Anyway, guys, any more questions or concerns? No more gym questions. We've done the gym talk. As you guys know, after this stream, I'm literally going to change and it's straight to the gym. I might be in the Discord a little bit because that's something else I do when I walk. By the way, on my walks, I read through the Discord. I catch up with everything that's going on in the Discord. Angie says, I like being tacky. Eurotrash is my aesthetic and I make no apologies. Hey, if that's what you like and that's how you like to express yourself, who am I to tell you what to wear? When is the next stream? Who knows? It might be tomorrow. It might not. No one knows. Even I don't know. The LV logo is acceptable with utilitarian bags, in my opinion. Yeah. Logo mania is fun sometimes. I totally agree with you. Like I said, I would get the Pharrell Speedy, even though I don't really like logos, but I just like how wacky those like silly colors are of the Speedy. So I like it. I'd like to own one. But that's about it. Nothing else. 2000s Dior logo many as peak logo many. Of course you would say that. As a John Galliano fan. Like I love when the fashion forefathers get their tizzies in a bunch over Fendi and Versace. I'm not gonna lie though, that Fendace thing was a mess. That was an absolute mess, to be honest. It's a crazy mess. Also, this is true in the airport. 500 keeples everywhere, which is a big reason why I probably wouldn't get the keeple. Nothing wrong with the keeple though. It's just I personally wouldn't get it. But yeah, the Fendace thing, headache. That was headache inducing, no joke. It's interesting. So now with the black and gray keeple, the pole is now at 50-50. Interesting. So it was really, the color was important. You guys are out here bashing Fendace. That's funny. But anyway, guys, I actually need to make it to the gym. So I'll see you guys later. Thank you very much, guys, for tuning in. This was fun, talking about keeples and gym stuff. Hopefully I'll see all of you guys in the next stream. But until then, thank you very much for tuning in. Please follow me on Twitch. I'm trying to get to 200 followers. And that's a way for you to be notified every time I stream. So thank you very much, guys. See you in the next stream. I appreciate everyone that is here.